Hi, thank you for joining me in this episode of GradSWE UCLA presents Women in Science, We Have the Power to Change the World. My name is Yifan Gao, a PhD candidate from Civil and Environmental Engineering Department at UCLA. I'm also the International Student Event Officer at GradSWE UCLA. GradSWE stands for the Graduate Student Community of Society of Women Engineers. Our goal is to provide support to graduate students and help them shine in their future career. We are going to host a series of interviews to female scientists, and we hope we can encourage more women to join the community of STEM. Our guest today is Dr. Yike Shen. She's currently a postdoctoral researcher at the Environmental Health Science Department from Columbia University. Her areas of interest are environmental health data science, microbiome, and exposure assessment. If you're interested in her research, please follow her at her website. Hi, Yike. Thank you for joining me in this episode.
Hi, Yifan. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I was hoping if you could introduce yourself and your research to us.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for the introduction, and thank you for so much for having me. So it's always a joy for me to talk with passionate PhD students like you. My name is Yike Shen. I'm currently a postdoc at Columbia University Melbourne School of Public Health. I thought it would be nice to give 5 minutes lightning talk on my work, so people have some rough ideas. So my research is themed in high dimensional exposures, multi-omics, and machine learning in environmental health. So about me, I grew up in a beautiful city in Southeast China called Hangzhou, where 70% of the lands are the hills and the mountains. My dad is a forestry engineer, and we would climb the small mountain behind our home every day when I was young. My mom is a math teacher. My parents both got their college degree in the STEM field. I guess I got interested in environmental health through the day-to-day conversations with my parents and friends. So I was determined to pursue my career as an environmental scientist to improve the environment for a better world. So I did my bachelor's degree in environmental and conservation sciences at the University of Alberta in Canada. I then moved to Michigan State University, did my PhD training in crop and soil science, environmental toxicology, with a dual major in environmental science and policy. With the interest to learn more human endpoint environmental science research, I continued my training in environmental health sciences as a postdoc. So environmental health data science. It is the integration of data analytical and interpretation skills into the increasingly massive and complex environmental health science data. So we as humans are exposed to a myriad of chemical pollutants, for example, those pharmaceuticals and personal care products, metals, pesticides, air pollution, etc. And those chemicals, those exposures can ultimately collectively alter our epigenome, metagenome, metatranscriptome, or we call them omics, and can in turn influence our health status. So all of those data we're looking at here is high dimensional. So my goal is to deciphering the complex relationships between the exposures, omics, and health outcomes. So the first part of my line of study is to study the environmental exposures to the molecular biomarkers, specifically on the exposures to the microbiome omics. So why are we studying microbiome? Microbiome is important and have bilateral relationships with the host in almost all settings. For example, the soil and plant microbiome regulates the soil, plants, and ecosystem health, while the human gut microbiome is important in regulating the host digestion, nutrition, and the immune response, immune systems. And then we are exposed to chemicals every day. For example, the long-term exposure of trace level of antibiotics may result in the antibiotic resistance in the environment and human, making the treatment less effective. Some of the metal exposures have resulted in various adverse health outcomes like lung disease, DNA damage, gut dysbiosis, and they were also found to be carcinogens and have some neurotoxicity. So with the knowledge that the microbiome have shown an increasing power of modulating the human health outcomes and responding to the environmental exposures. So I look at the environmental exposures, they can cause changes in bacterial community taxonomy, pathways, and functions that may subsequently impact the human health. So this part is my PhD dissertation. My work, we found that the environmentally relevant antibiotic exposures change the bacterial community and the antibiotic resistant genes in the plant and soil systems. Because this is important because if those genes transfer to some pathogenic bacteria, that will make the antibiotics treatment less effective. So those studies motivated me to learn more of possible changes indirectly to the human gut microbiome. So this part is from my postdoctoral training that I have studied the associations of the metals and some non-prescription drugs to the exposures with the childhood gut microbiome in a Canadian first cohort study. Yes. Okay. So when training, when I was training in the best environmental health department in the nation, I realized we do not look at the isolated exposures, omics, and health outcomes. It's a system that immersed with the data. So how do we comprehensively evaluate exposure omics and health outcomes? I approach this through the precision computational environmental health. This work for this section is a major collaboration with my colleague, Dr. Yifan Gao. Now we look at the path of exposures to the health outcomes. This can be evaluated by the exposure assessment and toxicity. So we predicted the pesticide dissipation half-life intervals in the field using the chemical molecular fingerprints input into the gradient boosted regression tree model. We also predicted the chemical ecotoxicity using the autoencoder models to from the high-dimensional physicochemical input features. So this is the model that we developed and applied. So looking at the omics, for example, the epigenomics is a powerful biomarker to capture the exposures and disease. We further developed an advanced autoencoder survival analysis model to predict the cardiovascular disease using the epigenomics data. So looking at it as a whole, the large-scale environmental exposures omics health outcomes are usually studied by the longitudinal cohort studies. And each cohort usually generates hundreds of publications, which are usually commonly organized in a tabular form, searchable through the online publications and online databases. So we developed a multi-layer knowledge graph. We call it cohort network to enable the knowledge-driven discovery in the cohort studies to kind of attach this full picture. So I guess my training and research seems all come back to the environmental health data science. I aim to approach this framework through the computational precision environmental health and the biomarker discovery from the high-dimensional omics and environmental exposure data. Yeah, so that's my lightning talk. I will stop here.
Yeah, thank you so much for your lightning talk. So it's very sparing. So basically for me, I can summarize like at least 3 keywords from your talk. So I think the first one is environmental health, and then contamination treatment like pharmaceutical compounds, and then another one is microbiome. So my first question would be, so what made you to dedicate your career to understand environmental health and like contamination problems by studying microbiome? And what is microbiome, by the way, like to our audience?
Yes. So microbiome is a system that consists of various bacteria and also fungi and virus. For me, I mainly study the bacteria. So when I was navigating with specific research directions in the environmental science that I want to pursue during my senior years of my undergraduate, I saw this WHO report on the antimicrobial resistance that's reflected by the proliferation of antibiotic resistant genes and the changes in the bacterial community. So at that time, I realized the importance of this antimicrobial resistant issues and trying to find if there's any PhD positions studying these topics. Luckily, I found a position that studied the antibiotic resistance and the bacterial microbiome in the lettuce and the soil system in the Yes, in agriculture
Okay.
systems.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I came during my doctoral training. I noticed we as humans are exposed to a consortium of pollutants,
Yeah.
and then the ultimate endpoint is human.
Yeah.
So that motivated me to learn more on the possible changes directly to the human gut microbiome. So I think I fell in love with the microbiome as they are so rich, and we're only exploring kind of tip of the iceberg. So
Yeah.
for me, I witnessed the advancement of technologies during the start of my PhD. Lots of researchers only use amplicon sequencing. At that time, was very popular. But within 3.5 years in my training,
Yeah.
in the late stage of my PhD, I saw the shotgun metagenomic sequencing is exploding. And then I stepped into the environmental health area. Was one of the best environmental health department in the nation, and then noticed, oh, we need to do multi-omics, right, to integrating the metagenomics, metatranscriptomics, metagenomics, metabolomics, etc. So my point is, I think the microbiome kind of never stops surprising me.
Yeah.
As trained in environmental health, and of course, the environmentally relevant exposures are always the key to my research. So yeah, it's been more than 6.5 years and lots of papers and all these lines of research, and I hope to integrate my training in the past 2 years in the machine learning perspectives into this exposure microbiome topics and to apply it in the large population cohorts in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for introducing your career development. I can see like your interest was like growing from like undergrads, and then that started to grow like basically drive you to like to pursue postdoc. So I can hear like machine learning, metagenomics, a lot of like words that sometimes to most of the students in environmental engineering major, like this computer science and skills to solve environmental problems is cutting edge or sort of like unfamiliar to us, because most of the traditional classes are not related to this field. So we are studying like water treatment system, like wastewater treatment plants, but not like computer science or data science. So I was wondering if you could introduce a significance based on your experience to us, like to all the audience that are interested in this field or not quite familiar in this field.
Sure. So I don't have any computational trainings during my undergraduate, so I can second that. I was very lucky to have a very supportive mentor and an interdisciplinary training environment during my PhD. So I did my PhD at Michigan State. So this is the true story. When I first started my PhD in 2016, my mentor gave me a microbiome and antibiotic resistant genes data set to play with. So very, very soon I noticed I don't have proficient computational skills to process the data. And without the systematic training, the coding process was very inefficient to me. So I think lots of students, as you said, may came across the kind of the same problems. Yes, if they have not came across a large data set before. So what I did, I immediately enrolled in the coding classes and workshops. So my graduate school has a very good computational resources. So I did a month boot camp. It's all in-person boot camps. I did a full semester Python coding course, and I did a month class in the shell scripts, Linux, and high performance computation boot camp, which for the bioinformatics we process that in the clusters. So MSU has this very strong the high performance computing centers, HPCC. They have a seminar series that gives us all the students a hands-on experience on coding on this how to use their platform. So I attended them, and I think I wanted to get as many hands-on experience as possible. I also learned from my colleagues, and I think most important here is I need to practice. So I think for those codings and computational skills, that practice is always the key. So in terms of the courses in the environmental engineering or more traditional experimental-based environmental science, I think now I'm in the school of public health, and then I noticed data science skills are required and key to every student trainings. I couldn't speak for the environmental engineering as I'm not in environmental engineering. I'm in more of the health science perspective. But I think more traditional majors like environmental science, toxicology, the school curriculum needs a change to include required introduction to data science and coding
Yeah,
courses.
that's true. Yeah.
To,
I
so
totally
that,
agree with that. Yeah.
yeah, and then that can equip the students with those necessary skills that will be very useful no matter what career path they choose,
Yeah.
because it's very applicable not only in academia but also in industry. So I
Yeah.
think for students, if the degree currently do not include those classes, I would strongly recommend students to take those. They should be available in any universities as free electives, and do some probably do some online boot camps. And remember, not only taking classes are not enough. I've seen people taking a lot of classes but not make no progress. We need to practice a lot. We need to have face the real world questions. How does this coding skills, so like how to use R, Python, Unix, apply to your research. And then with the practice, you kind of get this exponential curve. The first stage will be pretty difficult for you to get into, for any student get into this coding. And then once you get used to it, everything becomes very smooth, and most importantly, reproducible. I think it's very important in research to have reproducible workflow in any kind of paper.
Yeah, I think if I summarize what you just said is first for undergrads, if they're interested in bioinformatic research, is like they can take courses or attend workshops. For example, UCLA has a lot of workshops. I attend one of them. So, and it's like, I think it's pretty interesting. Is a lot of introduction, introduction courses and all the stuff in the workshop. So undergrads can take that. And the second suggestion would be to practice, like actually to have a data set to play with, and then apply all the knowledge they gain from courses or workshops to the research is very important for students that are interested in this field, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
So you have already learned a lot of skills, not in like computer science, not only in computer science, but also like environmental health, like traditional environmental science field. So right now I know you are in the stage of finishing up your postdoc training and transition into an assistant professor position, right? So may I ask why you decided to become a professor, and what is your top advice that you would like to share with us, especially to the audience that thinking about or currently like pursuing the academia path?
Right. I think for me, becoming a professor is always a dream to me. I wanted to become a professor because I see how important it is to keep myself constantly updated with advancement in science and mentor students. I think and then think what we can do together to push the science forward. And students are the futures, and I always see their energy, passion, creativity, critical thinking. And also for me, I love teaching as much as I do research. I also love to engage in professional activities. For example, networking with colleagues, giving invited talks, conference presentations, review papers, and science communication, like what we do now. I think the only job as a professor can achieve these goals altogether. So it's kind of my dream. In terms of my advice for the candidates who are in the job market, I think there are several points to be a competitive candidate in the job market. It's probably a long list. I have 8 points. But I can as I went through many interviews in the past 3 months. So I think I'll guess the first and most important one is you need to find your niches. What makes your research novel and unique? How do you distinguish yourself from other candidates? Because you want to imagine in 10 years. So lots of people ask me these questions. What do you see yourself in 10 years? In 10 years, I think people discuss what's new in the field. They were thinking about the university you're working in. And then they were thinking about your department and you. So that's kind of the goal, like what you need to equip yourself with the academic job market. I have 7 more points. If I can share some 7 more points on how to be a competitive candidate. I think the 7 points is you need to build your credentials. So this is a multi-layer process. I recommend the candidates to be patient. It took me around 6 years of training to build my credentials and have my research story clearly conveyed with the publication evidence. And in lots of fields, it can be much longer, especially for more like pure biology focused experimental based field. I think the next important point is to find supportive mentors. I am very lucky that my PhD and postdoctoral mentors and my collaborators are very supportive. They are available whenever, basically whenever I need them, giving me the advice in my career development. And I think I'm very grateful for their mentorship. They are my role models. So when I become a professor, I want to be mentors like them. I guess next point I want to make, next point I want to make is to be active. I think it's important for the candidate to actively thinking what you can do to make the team, make the project better. Because in order to be a professor or transition into a professor, you need to be a leader. You need to be able to lead a team of researchers, and you need to be a team player, because now mostly it's the team science, and you need to be a good listener. With the especially in the environmental health sciences, the field are getting more interdisciplinary. So there are a lot of times different people with different background talk with each other. So I think it's important to listen to where they come from, and then we can work together to make the team better. Build your brand. So that's my next point. So I see you already have a website. I also made my website. So I think
website is the brand.
Yes, website is the brand. Make a website so people can check what you do, because there's so many candidates out there. They want to give some ideas, because if sometimes you look at your CV, you're like, what's your experience? What's your publications? You're not looking at the full story, and then you can write your full story in the website, and then people will learn better. So I think it will be very nice, and networking with your colleagues, and probably have a Twitter page if you're comfortable with engaging in the scientific communications. There are many, and there are 3 more points. Get grants. It's a high bonus if you can get some pathway to independent grant like K99. But it's not necessary. It's not what can I say? It's good, but you do not have to have a K99 to apply for the faculty jobs.
Especially K99 is more like for health and
field,
right? And like for our, I actually checked the K99 is like engineering. It's not on the list. I feel like it's
right. That's correct. And I've seen many successful candidates landing their dream faculty jobs without a K99. So I think as also in engineering, as long as you are active, you have a nicely flow research story, and then you have ideas, publications, presentations, and there are lots of good universities out there that you can apply, and then you can get grant once you started. It's not a problem at all. My last 2 advice for this is to get the advice from your mentors and peers. Use the university resources. So we here at Columbia, we have a series of trainings on academic job applications. We also have a SHARP bootcamp. So anybody who are interested, register for the SHARP bootcamp. It's twice a year for the PI crash course. My mentor is leading that bootcamp.
Share the link with me. Share the link with me. I will share it like under in the YouTube description.
Sure. I'll send you the link about the bootcamps. It's not only the PI crash bootcamp. We have like 50 bootcamp, 20. I don't know, many bootcamps in the summer. It's around $1,000 per bootcamp. Some are cheaper, and then you get 2 to 3 days intensive trainings in specific topics in the environmental health. Health sciences. Yes. Okay. Yes. In any ways, but it's my only my personal experience in the academic job market. I think depending on the candidate's interest and career goals, industry jobs are also in high demand. So at the end of the day, it's just a job. So I think as long as you do the job you like, it doesn't matter if that's in the academia or industry.
These are really practical suggestions. Not only insightful but also practical. It's like all the experience you gain from your like tons of interviews in 3 months, maybe 3 months. So I feel like if students if right now they have like they're thinking about to pursue an academia career, I think for now what they can build up on is like to be active and to actually try to build up the credential that you just said, to publish papers and to actually make yourself like outstanding in this field, and then differentiate yourself from the other candidates in your career. I think these are like really like important for the PhD students or like other students who are thinking about the academia path. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of these. These are so meaningful to the channel, because like if the audience are listening to this episode, they actually will gain a lot of like real experience from you, and then actually probably will make a list of what they want to do for their next class. Right, yeah.
That's what I learned from the courses at Columbia.
Yeah. So basically, we are the channel that have part of the Columbia courses here. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah. So my next question would be for our organization. So we are Society of Women Engineers. So our organization aims to like support female scientists and other engineers to like actually shine in their career. So I was wondering, like, as a female scientist, what challenges have you met, in a way that you make these big decisions of your academia life, like to be a professor, to actually like, from Canada to the US, and then just decided to pursue a PhD?
Right. So I think for me, I'm very lucky to have very supportive family members and partners throughout my academic journey. There were definitely some voices here and there from other people talking about being a good member of the family, a good wife, versus being a female scientist. I wouldn't say it's in the way of me making any big decisions. I guess that's something a lot of female scientists may face, especially for the PhD students. So I think from my experience, being a scientist and bringing happiness to your family are not mutually exclusive, right? I have seen so many female scientists who have a lovely family and amazing careers. I think I usually choose to ignore those voices because I know my goals and what I want to do in the future, and those voices are inevitable because we live in a world where people have different opinions, right?
Yeah.
So
that's true.
I think it's very interesting that as I advance in my career, like I think those voices are mostly common in my PhD while you're still getting the degree, and then I'm doing a postdoc in this process. Those voices become less and less. It's very funny that earlier this year, a person who said to me in one of my undergraduate lab technician days that women should focus more on being finding a good husband, raising kids after, rather than excel in their career. He asked me if I can teach his students some microbiome projects they are working on. We haven't talked with each other for like 8 years. I thought it's pretty funny that he asked me this. But anyways, I think for all the female scientists that who are navigating their career and life, my advice is don't think too much and don't be afraid. Do what you want to do. I found my husband during my graduate school, and I have seen so many sweet couples met in graduate schools and married later on. So I think for me, my husband is very supportive and proud of my growth throughout the years. He's also very proud that I'm in the way of interviewing and transitioning into the next stage in my career and our life. So I think most of the guys out there will appreciate your work and effort and proud that their partners are the scientists. If they think you should be doing more basic jobs or intimidated by your achievement as a scientist, they are probably not the right person for you.
Yeah, he's not the right guy. Yeah, I feel like it's more like personal side of you is like I really like this part of you because it's I know you have like a really supportive partner and really supportive family to your career. I think for like all the scientists, not just female scientists or like they want to be a professor, it's actually a really long journey. It's you have to go through like many years of PhD training and then like be on the job market for if you are pretty like lucky, I would say, but you are really also really outstanding. So probably you'll get a job next year. But for other people, probably you'll need to wait for like a 1 or 2 years as a postdoc or as a research scientist. So it's like a really long journey. So I really like your advice is like to ignore those noise. Like I would say noise sometimes. It's like it's not actually like will actually make your life better, but they will actually like distract you from like pursuing your dream. So I really like your advice. It's like sort of like trying to focus what you are doing right now. So
Right.
yeah.
We cannot get everybody satisfied. So
But yeah, that's
as
true.
long as
That's
you are happy yourself, it's good. Right?
yeah, that's yeah. So you just talked about the role models. So I know your mentors are your role models. So I was wondering if you have any female role models that you are looking up to, like when you are pursuing your career.
Right. So my female role model is definitely my mom.
Yeah.
My mom is a middle school math teacher, and she has won numerous awards for her excellence in teaching and mentorship. That's also probably a part of the reason I want to be a professor. So her student love her, and my mom loved her job and our family. It's from a very humble beginning. My grandparents are farmers that live in the edge of the city skylines. We used to call their place the villages in the city. My grandparents worked very hard. When they were younger, they wake up at 3 a.m., go to the field to get the vegetables for the day, and then sell them to the people in the city at 5:30 a.m. And then my mom would read while helping my grandparents do the farm work. She was the first college student from our village. My mom set the rule for the whole village, and my mom's sister, my aunt, was the second college student from our village. So I think during this process, my mom have taught me to be active and seeking resources in my career. My mom was the youngest teacher elected to have an advanced title. So in China, you have this advanced title as a teachers. She got her title in her early 30s. It's still amazing to me to think that my mom had me when she was 23, and then navigating her way to being an excellent teacher and then play a key role in our family. So I think my mom is my role model, of course.
Yeah, so you're looking at your mom is like balancing the work and family, and also like she's like the first generation of college students. That's amazing.
Right.
And not just first generation in the families, in the whole village. So I feel like I totally get that why your mom is your role model. I feel like your mom is also my role model too, because I feel like every woman from that age is like they grow up, like especially like this background, and then they're trying to like find a way to like shine in their career. I think that's really amazing. Yeah, it's something like everyone should look up to.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah. So my last question is, do you have any advice that you would like to offer to women who are thinking about or currently are pursuing STEM majors?
Yeah. So I think my advice is quick and simple. Find your dream and go for it. Don't let small things stop you. People will appreciate you and your work, and you will be great. So just do it. So that's my
I like
advice.
this one. Yeah, just do it. Yeah, thank you for providing this. Just do it. It's we were not like advertising for Nike, but it's like just do your job, do your dream, and whatever is in your mind, just go for it. And just pursue your dream. So
that's right. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you so much for joining me today. And so thank you
so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
And happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holiday seasons. Yeah. Bye-bye. Yeah. Thank you for joining me for today's episode of Women in Science. We have the power to change the world. Please hit the subscribe button and follow us to hear more stories from female scientists.